And it looks like we're live today on this Friday afternoon, Friday evening. Either way, we're kind of winding up the week here on Scott's Weather. It's been kind of a fascinating week with the China flood still ongoing. Although as I look around today, there's just not much new information. The rivers aren't going to go away. They're not going to drain out overnight. And the monsoon, the rains that have caused that are still underway. As I looked at some of the models last night and earlier this morning, it looks like we've got about another 5 to 7 days worth of rain, and then it does turn off with the models indicating a precipitation deficiency developing after about 120 to 144 hours, so 5 to 6 days. And then we begin to see things drying off. And whatever kind of damage is left over from that, holy cow, it's going to be quite a cleanup effort. And I'm kind of concerned because we've already kind of been on edge with China with the whole COVID thing. And then we've got this whole supply chain, shipping, and then food. Food. Trust me, that is going to be the story out of this event as we move on through. Good evening to see you guys coming on in there. It should be kind of a nice weekend we've got ahead for you all, at least stateside. That's the good news. All right, let's pop over here. Let's share a little screen. What I want you to do is come over and like my page. Yeah, you've got the profile page, but we need to come over and like the page, and we'll do the broadcasting from that as we move on down the road, especially as we get on into next month. And that's kind of where things are going to be happening. And then we can kind of share, get analytics, and understand where the audience is coming from, so forth and so on. So just do me a favor and head off over in that direction. All right, as far as weather is concerned, major category 3, Douglas rapidly intensifying. And that's going to be a thing. We've got Douglas, we've got Hannah, we've got Gonzalo, and we've got another couple of waves out over the Atlantic that are not going to move away soon. Let's pop back to China. NASA has a lot of really cool tools. I'm telling you, they've got a lot of really cool tools. Some of them space-based, some of them software. Some of it is just the ability to see what's going on in the larger scale. But their Global Precipitation Measurement Mission, or GPM, captured the rainfall accumulation across Asia through India and over to Japan through this monsoon season, which just began June 1. So in a way, we're maybe two-thirds of the way through it. There's just a distance to go. We're not done. And where we've got the reds, where that the Himalayas begin to uplift from those plateaus, from India through Bhutan, through Myanmar, and then into Nepal, just in copious amounts of rain have fallen, and then through a lot of China. So much precip has fallen, and then even into southern Japan, where they have seen epic 3 times normal rainfall, and that just since the beginning of the month. So head on over to the Watchers and have a look at that particular story or angle on what's going on. And then Hawaiian Watch, Hurricane Watch in effect for the Hawaiian Island. The models predict that Hurricane Douglas will make landfall around midnight Saturday night. So we've got 28, 30 hours tops to get battened down. And this being a category 3, meaning we've got those winds at or above 100 miles per hour. So this is likely to be a big event. And there's the latest predictions from the National Hurricane Center. The Pacific version of that center, and the cone of variability is a little narrower. Sometimes these cones are kind of wide. It could end up somewhere in there, but this one is really tightened up. Either way, those strong winds will impact the entirety of the Hawaiian Island chain. Move on south. Once we've got Gonzalo down in this direction, still on the eastern side of the Windward Islands, and then Hannah up here, not far away from the Texas coast presently. We're also monitoring a strong tropical wave that has just emerged from Africa. The system has a medium 40% chance of becoming a tropical depression through Wednesday, which is still a little ways away. I mean, like nearly a week, and I'm going to bet you that in 48 hours, this puppy is red, meaning a greater than 60% chance of it developing and then getting a name. All right, so Hannah getting closer and somewhat better organized over the western Gulf of Mexico. This from the NHC. Storm surge warnings are now posted. And then the outlook forecast is just going to be north of Padre, Corpus Christi area, and then it will push into the mountains of northern Mexico. where, as we know, with that kind of terrain, that very wavy, high elevations, that the rainfall totals could be exceptional. And what that does is create the great risk for flash flooding. We'll look at some of those rainfall totals, easily 5 to 10 inches. And honestly, that is a very blanket statement from the NHC, is 5 to 10 inches. That's a lot of territory to cover. But it definitely looks like it's going to be the story for the weekend in that direction. Today was fun, electric day at the Grand Canyon as the summer monsoon is now in full swing through the southwest. I'm in southern Colorado, and we almost got some rain. It was going, thunder, lightning, and then boom, this energy was just zapped out of it, and the storm just kind of fell apart. Epic. This is a great time lapse. I don't know if I can go full screen, but what we're looking at is a time lapse over city, and then there's Comet Neowise. You see that there, slowly sinking towards the northern horizon. So it's still visible. It is dimmer than it was last weekend. So if you've got a pair of binoculars, go out there and have a little look-see of it. But either way, it's fading, and it will become a past history thing pretty soon. All right, this RT, I kind of noticed on Twitter today that UFOs was trending. And UFOs, not to sound weird or unusual, but certainly kind of a non-contrarian. Well, plot twist, the Pentagon has been run by aliens this entire time. There might be some funky truth to that. We'll just have to see. But this was a story over on RT. Harry Reid, former senator from Nevada, told the New York Times in a story just yesterday that he believes the federal government has material from UFO crashes in its possession, and it got approximately zero attention. And I'm sure things will be back to normal by July. UFOs are in the story. So there's some other stories that are kind of merging. Whether this is just to prepare us for the great reveal that some of us kind of already knew was there, but then to bring it onto the national discourse would change everything. It changes energy, it changes politics, it changes religion, it changes human history, it changes everything. And I think this is why there has been such resistance to addressing this topic for as long as I've been alive, and I would be just thrilled to have this finally out in the open and a discussable event. All right, we've got the Hawaiian Islands here. This is the forecast of winds at about the 10-meter level. If you're not familiar with metric, that's about 35 feet above the ground. That gets you above the trees. It gets you above the waves. It gets you above what we meteorologists like to call the boundary layer. Down below the boundary layer, we have turbulence. Up above that, you have you're basically in the slipstream. You've got the plain, unimpeded flow of the air. So we've got this very tight core around Douglas, and if I can scroll up enough without losing Douglas down below the screen, I could roll that forward, and this path becomes just north of the islands. It's kind of just a raking. It's kind of like, I believe, what Irma did to Puerto Rico back in 2017, in early September of 2017. So it's kind of a similar path. Doesn't appear that it'll be nearly as strong as that Puerto Rican event 3 years ago, but nonetheless, all of these Hawaiian Islands will be grazed by this storm this weekend. That appears to be inevitable. Yesterday, we talked about an Arctic oscillation, or the strong high pressure which remains anchored across the North Pole. And when you put the big high sitting on top of the planet or underneath it, what you do is you force the jet stream down farther south than it would typically go. And it's that energy dropping into China that has enabled a very copious amounts of rain to come out of the monsoon. And hopefully, with that strong high there, we can get these big blocking highs, one over Eurasia, another one developing over western Siberia. Once these guys break down, then we can get kind of, the wave train to move a little bit, and we can get the stuck weather patterns to move somewhat, and that would allow for some drying out of China, and then maybe some really good rains into the southwestern U.S. All right, a quick look at Hawaii before we see the storm come into view. And notice these are 13,000-foot peaks on the Big Island, and the clouds just really kind of have to loop on around, come back in, curl in like a wing in an airflow. But it is those windward sides that will likely get the bulk of the moisture out of this particular event. Hannah, beginning to wrap up and maybe close off a little bit of an eye. Certainly we have a center of circulation in progress down there, and it is slowly pushing ashore. Good to see you guys coming ashore. Robin, Vicky, Karen, Robin and Vicky Karen once again, and Luna Rose popping on, giving us a little bit of a shout out. So glad to see you on there this afternoon. Yeah, Karen, I'm a big fan of lightning. I like hearing it. I enjoy the thunder. It's just kind of like this big, incredible discharge. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of like a weather guy that particular way. Otherwise, storms through the southwest. We had some good rains in Tucson last night, moving up into the mountains of Arizona. They're still in progress today. No flood warnings anywhere except maybe in the high Appalachian Plains, but even right now, those look like just severe thunderstorm warnings in the yellow shading. Same story for central and western Nebraska on up into South Dakota. Where they could pick up a good bit of rain. And rain this time of year, you might as well, because precip totals, especially as you get into the western parts of the states, really drop off precipitously. So that's just good water to have in place, especially when you have temperatures in Grand Island, Nebraska at 99 degrees, top of last hour, 90s well into northern North Dakota. Hot in the southwest, even despite the cooling effect of that rain falling from the sky and the low humidities. But the heat in the middle of the nation and the eastern states, granted, it's humid, but not as hot. At least when you look at the temperatures, you can see where we've got shaded in green, Michigan right in here, sitting under a nice high pressure. But it is this green line. There's the 60, 65 degree contour that separates the drier air from where that humidity is in place and then is capable of fueling those kind of showers and thunderstorms. So as we move into the weekend, severe weather in the deep southwest and of course along the Gulf Coast as Hannah makes its move inland, and then through the upper Midwest, just as we are seeing right now. Tomorrow that shifts a little farther to the western lake states, still western New Mexico under the gun for severe weather. So for photographers, that's probably the place to go, is into the southwest. And then we'll be watching Hannah very close to making landfall. That will happen probably during the daylight hours tomorrow, probably the early part of the day. And then on day 3, it's ashore, but likely into Mexico, as there's the low pressure from the decaying tropical storm. And then the precip totals, we'll head over here for that. All right, record heat. None today. How about tomorrow? None tomorrow. Maybe on Sunday, in and around Wallops Island, 92 degrees, which would put it a degree shy of a record high. And then that period of record only about 54 years, going back to 1966. Monday, a cluster of them into the tri-state area with temperatures middle 90s. Nothing too exceptionally hot or extraordinary as most of the nation. Where we would see the incredible lows would be where we have the humidity, where that moisture is in place, where that cloud cover is in place. That looks like it'll be those hot places. Then you can see that list of places. If you know your three-letter identifiers, PVD being Providence, New York City, NYC. I want to say MQE is Marquette, but that's not the case. Dulles at IAD, EYW, Key West. So that's those. Binghamton, New York, 69 degrees. So we've got some warm nights, but not necessarily record heat for afternoon highs. That ridge that has allowed the warmth to be in place remains in place. It's there, it's strong, and if anything, it begins to kind of like compress to the southeast, and then it wants to curl back in and pop up into the western states after, don't do that, please. And then it kind of reshifts. It kind of comes back into the west to reestablish the strong high over the southwest and into the western states. But then the models are really kind of insistent that we see a very cool period of cool weather come in across the Pacific Northwest from Alaska and then park itself off the Pacific Northwest. And if that's the case, then we could begin to see some showers impinging on the Pacific Northwest, but that's still every bit of 2 weeks away. All right, to wrap things up, where will the rain fall? Obviously, where we're going to have the landfall of Hannah, the southwest. It's just a wet time of year for there, and as long as they're not sitting under that, what they call a capping high pressure, the thunderstorms run into some cool air. Once they leave that hot ground, they take that moisture with them, and then up they go, and then vaulting skyward they go, and that's where the heavier rains would be. Maybe North Florida, Panhandle, 4, 5, 6, all coming up on 7 inches worth of rain, and then into the mountains northeast of Tucson and Phoenix. Some of the models are cranking out 1 to 7 inches worth of rainfall, and that would be so needed. Their reservoirs they're not empty, but they're low, and they've been low for years. And one wet weekend or one wet 2-week period isn't going to do it unless it would be truly, a monumental weekend. But that just doesn't kind of seem to be in the cards for that. But certainly rains in the southwest. We'll watch Douglas. We'll watch Hannah. We'll watch what becomes of that wave coming off of Africa. So as we mentioned earlier in the week, I think it was Wednesday, we talked about this massive Kelvin wave rolling across Africa. And once that emerges and stays as they move very slowly westward in the Atlantic, we probably have a very, very active 2 to 3 week period ahead of us. So those folks in the southeast, always an eye to the sky. At least we had a breeze today. I'm not quite sure who or where, but hey, I'm always good for a breeze. Even if it's hot, anything to keep that air moving and that moisture on the skin just kind of breathing, able to evaporate and give us some relief. Dogs are inside, nice and out of the heat. All right, guys, have a great weekend. If something pops up that's just too bizarre to not talk about, then we'll throw up a little warning and then come and bring the news to you. I think the biggest story for that to happen would be, hey, the aliens have been here all along. Wouldn't that be a crazy series of stories to have come out? The true reveal of the fact that nobody's really from here? That would be kind of exciting. All right, just something to think about as we move into the weekend. We'll see you on Monday, if not before. Have a great weekend, everybody. And as always, hey, keep looking up.